You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back, everyone, to round 4 of the Eternal Tournament Series, the final weekly for Season 3. I am once again joined by my wonderful co-host here, Truedawn, and we are about to get into another fantastic match for you all for round 4. We're going to have Thundershot 899 on his TJP mid-range deck against Waladil on his Stonescar Callus deck. So these are pretty much honestly standard list. I don't really have too much to say about them. Waladil is on what looks like the bog standard Stonescar Callus list. What do you think, Truedawn?
Yeah, this is like level 1 of Callus. This is pretty standard. It is the Smuggler Stashes, the Through Callus, the Oblivion Spike. These are all the cards that you put in your deck if you're like, okay, how do I build a Callus deck? Like, this is the first deck you come up with. And it is like kind of the most lean, the most streamlined, the most focused. It does have some weaknesses. If you aren't able to leverage Smuggler Stash, or pretty weak going late. You also kind of flounder in the early game. You're playing cards that don't actually matter. But in this matchup, that shouldn't really matter a lot. We see on the Time Justice Primal side that they do have things like Surso, which Surso is actually not great in this matchup because it doesn't interact favorably with things like Assembly Line and other tokens. So this is one of the matches where it's not great. Although we do see that Thundershot does have a couple accelerated evolutions to give the pig father flying. So that may come up.
Yeah, that may come up. And another card to note in Thundershot's TJP list that we did get to see earlier, and you made a comment on, is he is playing 2 slow in the main board as well as 1 in the side. And slow is a very interesting card for a matchup like this. It could definitely do a lot of damage to Waladil if an Oblivion Spike or a Smuggler Stash got hit with a slow.
Yeah, those are the 2 main targets you're going to try and hit if you're on Thundershot's side. So we're likely not going to see slow play before turn 5, unless their mana curve necessitates playing it earlier. You can still hit a Callus, and that's not bad, but they'll be able to cast it eventually. But making a Oblivion Spike or Smuggler Stash cost 10 is just uncastable for this deck.
Yeah, it's very unlikely that the Callus deck is going to hit 10 power, so you can often just carry a game away. And those accelerated evolutions might actually be very, very useful in this matchup, as we do see, obviously, the Torrent of Spiders. That's a standard inclusion in the Callus decks, and those spiders do gum up the ground in a very annoying way for the TJP deck.
Yeah, Crystallize is going to be doing a lot of heavy lifting in this matchup, most likely.
Yeah, that's definitely true as well. Another important card here. We see Thundershot off to what looks like a very slow but solid hand. He's got the Seek power to find his Primal, although he will need to find another one in the coming turns.
Yeah, this hand is pretty slow. Although it's interesting because the way the Callus deck punishes other decks for like being slow is with a large Callus. He needs to get tokens in play to do that, and it's unclear how much a big Callus is like good against Thundershot. Like, he has pretty large creatures. If it's bigger than 6/6, getting a Surso plus something else is going to be very good, but I'm unsure. And we will see if they elect to throw off the slow here. I think it's a little too early, but we'll see if what's hits.
Ooh, Bloodright Callus for 2. So picked up the Callus off the quarry. That's certainly an interesting card. I doubt you're going to double the cost of that, though, since taking it from 2 to 4 doesn't help you but so much. Though it does slow down your opponent doing some janky combos earlier on.
We'll see if Thunder notices the arrow. We've had many people, including myself, not see the arrow, and there it is. Okay, so it's Combust the Quarry. So out of all these, Torrent of Spiders is likely the hit. It's the most expensive card. It's also one of the better cards against you. Making one of the 1-drops or the 2-drops cost more doesn't really do a lot. So I would expect us to see Torrent of Spiders get slowed.
Yeah, it's either going to be Torrent or maybe you could take Quarry here to slow down their cycling, but I think Torrent is definitely the better choice here. Going to put that very far out of range. And we do have almost perfect hand information. We've got, we know obviously Waladil has these 6 cards, and then since he has 7, he's holding only a single power. which could actually be a problem. And we do actually see Thundershot elect to stop the quarry from allowing Waladil to, cycle on this coming turn.
Yeah, it's really aggressive. I don't hate it. We see the one spider, not necessarily a torrent of spiders, really just a spider.
Yeah, a trickle if anything, and not particularly a torrent indeed.
Yeah.
We're gonna need to see quite a few more of those before I'd really want to call it a torrent. And we do see Torch coming down out of Waladil here to go ahead and take care of the Awakened Student. And Waladil starting that clock, man. 25 damage.
Oh,
25
and it's gone. And it's silenced.
Yeah, and it's silenced, so it's just a 1/1. But we will see a Devour come off, so that's at least pretty good for Waladil. He needs some card draw here. He needs to find some things. Ooh, and it did have another Torch, so it takes care of Valkyrie Enforcer as well.
And the good news for Waladil as he casts the 4-mana quarry is that Thundershot is stuck on power, and he could even draw power next turn and still not have a lot to do. So we do see another great Parliament. So if Waladil has some space to put some stuff in play, make a big Callus, Thundershot may be too far behind at that point to beat it.
Yeah, Thundershot's in a weird position in this matchup. That Permafrost in his hand, looking really sad. I have a feeling that'll be one of the first cards we see get yanked out in the sideboard.
Yep. And this is a very aggressive Callus, which it would have to see the texture of his hand, but this obviously says that he's on air because he really, really, really wanted to cycle that Dark Wisp.
Yeah, and he might get punished for it here with the Valkyrie Enforcer coming down. He's going to need another Torch or something like a Madness Combust combo to take care of this, but not having it immediately means that it looks like this Valkyrie Enforcer is going to connect. Yeah, and it does indeed. So pretty unfortunate there for Waladil. Got, I think, a little too aggressive with the Callus.
We do see Thundershot being a little bit wary of Madness Combust, not playing a second creature. I don't know. You're pretty far away from getting to a point where you can protect it with Stand Together, so I'm not sure what you're waiting for. I mean, maybe he is just waiting till 5 mana. But if he plays it this turn, then it's what did you prevent, really?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. Truedawn, quick question. When you quarry a card, the cost reduction stays permanently on it, does it not?
Forever.
So that Callus is, in fact, and I think Thundershot just noticed that as well, that is a different Callus from the one we saw get pulled in the hand earlier. So we do know that another Callus is floating around in the hand.
That would also explain the aggressive Callusing, that he has another Callus, as we do see the Madness Combust combo happen. So, although I think it's fine for Thundershot, you didn't really have the tools to play around that. You just have to jam your guys, just power through it. You have other stuff to play.
Ooh, and we see Assembly Line coming down here. Thundershot picks up a undepleted Primal Sigil here, and Waladil doesn't fire off the Callus right now. We could see a big punish, but not going to be the case here.
Yeah, knowing that they have the Callus, if you're Thundershot, you almost certainly crystallize that turn if you're able to. Because right now, if they play something else and then make an 8/8 plus Callus, you're in big trouble.
Interesting that we actually see a pass there. I think I would have liked to have seen the Great Parliament come down, honestly. Do you really expect your opponent to have double Madness, double Combust in their very limited hand?
Even if they do, you just have to fight through it. He's going to trade the Stand Together, for a Combust there, which is fine, but...
Yeah, second Combust comes down, so I guess the other Great Parliament will be unprotected, but now that we see Oblivion Spike come down, that's going to be nasty, although Sandstorm Titan certainly going to check that.
Yeah, Oblivion Spike is just one too small, unfortunately, and this attack is really aggressive unless he has something, and he does have something. But the Permafrost is going to be able to be a bit punishing here.
Yeah, Permafrost definitely going to punish. We obviously know that the reduced Callus is in hand, so that'll get slowed down to 4. Doesn't make too much of a difference here. Permafrost definitely going to come down on that, and we see Sandstorm Titan crashing for 5 to take care of that. So Waladil really would love to hit something like an Assembly Line right here.
And here we see the weakness of the original Callus deck. It is very streamlined to cobble together an early big Callus as much as possible. like the deck is built to do that. But when it does not do that, it doesn't do anything. So you get to a point like this where you don't have Smuggler Stash, or like you didn't bring your Callus, didn't get a big Callus, and you just start drawing 1/1s. Although, it does get an 8/8 here.
Yeah, and this 8/8 is very important, as we do see the Desert Marshal is going to come down. If this were a 6/6, though, this would have been completely blown out by the Desert Marshal with the follow-up attack from the Sandstorm Titan. As it stands, at least the Sandstorm Titan will be able to be cleared away by Waladil on his following turn. We're going to see if Thundershot is going to respect anything like Madness Combust here, well, though Waladil is holding 1 card, so it would have to be a very lucky set of top decks.
He's been through 3 Combust. You just jam from here if they have it.
Yeah, let's see what the follow-up is. And the power, not great, but Smuggler Stash is pretty great. So that's going to help out Waladil quite a bit here, assuming that Thundershot can't find a way to close this game out in the meantime.
Yeah, the original Callus deck is heavily reliant on leveraging Smuggler Stash, and he gets to in this for this draw. But if he's not able to do that, it's he's in bad shape.
Yeah, and we'll see. I have a feeling that Waladil is just going to, jam at least 1 unit on the board here. And Thundershot, really wishing he had double primal for that crystallize at some point. Would have been so useful earlier on in the game to help prevent a lot of these board states that have come up. And I mean, Thundershot, I guess that's kind of the story of this game, is he's just been punished really hard by his power base, which, is the downside to playing these very expensive tricolored decks that have so many double influence requirements.
Yeah, and he's not playing things like Find the Way, so he has like a little bit lower power density than other 3-color decks would. He does have like Amber Acolyte and Seek Power, so he does have like enough power, but he's going to encounter spots where he either doesn't draw enough business and power at the same time.
And here comes the 14/14 Callus, and if Thundershot keeps blanking here, this Callus might be enough to help Waladil get back into the game. And there's going to be enough units out of Waladil that the Oblivion Spike, that's the word I'm looking for. Oblivion Spike is going to be a great follow-up after the Callus gets taken care of.
Which isn't going to be for a bit, because these Grendon are going to jump in front of the Sandstorm Titan. So this Callus is going to kill like 2 more things, and that's probably going to be enough to bridge the gap.
Yeah, and Waladil, making a smart decision here, elects to take care of the flyer. That way it's not going to get chip damage through in the meantime. Just trying to preserve his Callus for a while. And Thundershot just has this dead Cerso and dead Crystallize in his hand in the meantime. He's going to get to drop the 4/4 flyer this time around. But, we see a nice little sack there out of Waladil to gain a little bit of health and draw some cards back.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's the way that Thundershot comes back in this game is if Waladil doesn't have creatures. Because as big as this Callus is and the Oblivion Spike are, if Thundershot keeps producing creatures to pressure the weapons on the backswing, Waladil will just run out. But there's the Slumbering Stone, which is very good. He bounces over the Crystallize, hoping to draw a second primal for it. Does not, unfortunately for him. So this Callus is just going to keep eating creatures, although Thundershot has continued to draw creatures for it to eat. So maybe if he draws a couple more creatures, he'll be able to outpace his weapons.
Yeah, and I mean, Waladil is very low if Thundershot can ever get a chance to pop through, but we do see the big Oblivion Spike. Oh, and there it is. Yeah, Permafrost right there. Just going to be absolutely destructive. Waladil is going to need to find a Smuggler's Stash off the top. At least maybe a Combust would be good enough, but
yeah, he does have like things like Grenadin Drone that give him redraws. Crystallize would have been lethal, but again, no second primal, unfortunately. So we'll see if the Sandstorm Titan can just go the distance. He's all on his own.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing a pretty good job so far. And there it is. Yeah, that extra Smuggler Stash should be it. He's going to go ahead and grab that Callus back that's already a 14/14, transform it into an 18/18, and take care of the Sandstorm Titan.
It's like draw card for his trouble if he wants. Right? Yeah. He can make it bigger than that.
Yeah, true. I did forget. He can turn this into a 20/20 if he wants. And I'm kind of surprised he didn't actually drop the Wisp here. I think playing Wisp is completely acceptable here. before you drop the Callus to draw another card. But either way, I mean, he's in such a solid position now, and that's just going to do it. Thundershot going to have to concede here as he doesn't draw another unit.
Yeah, we saw that the original Callus deck, or the baseline Callus deck that Waladil was playing, is just very, very reliant on drawing Smuggler Stash. And when it does, it's incredibly powerful and hard to beat. And when it doesn't, it kind of follows around. We did see that game that he drew 2, was able to recur the Callus enough times to close out the game. But even if we only did it once, like Thundershot was clawing back. Like if we didn't see that second stash and Waladil like drew the second primal, we wouldn't be able to bridge the gap. Like that game was still very close.
Yeah, very, very interesting there. You know, I'm checking as we go into sideboarding, looking at Thundershot's list. He is very lacking on primal sources. Like, it definitely should have found a second one by them. So, did get punished a little bit harder than he probably should have been. But his deck is very light on primal sources. So, not too unsurprising that he had some uncastable cards in his hand. We do see his sideboard game plan, though. He's got slow and decay, and I mean that's really essentially all you need to know about the sideboard. Slow and decay going to be absolutely huge here. Protect's going to be good as well to stop him from getting abused by the Madness Combust combos. And Rain of Frogs also could likely find its way in, as if you take Callus and Oblivion Spike or Smuggler Stash away from those decks, they are essentially dead in the water.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Rain of Frogs here. If you, like you said, if you take Stash or Callus, it renders a large portion of Waladil's deck non-functional. So I'm a huge fan of Rain of Frogs. I like Protect. Staying together is too expensive. You probably just want to like make that clean swap. It allows you to protect yourself from Madness Combust early in the game. Decay as well as extra insurance against the big weapons. So those are the big things I like. And
Yeah,
moving quickly here in the game too.
Yeah, on the other side, just really quick, Waladil's got some Flame Blast and some rallies in the sideboard. I have to imagine we might see some of those come in. Probably some Flame Blast to hopefully help close the game out.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of transformative. Like in matchups where your creatures would hang around, you'd probably want rally. But we see Waladil actually have a good start here, but so does Thundershot. Grunted Drones versus Awakened Students. And we do see the Sandinger just stayed in. I don't know how much I love that. It's just so expensive in this matchup, and there's no real sweepers you're playing against.
Yeah, I definitely would like to see it get sided out for the Protect instead. Let's see what Waladil has to follow up here, though. I mean, Thundershot's definitely in a much better position here, and he has the Seek Power and a Primal in hand, so he will be fully on a line with his colors this game around. But I am curious to see, if Waladil leads off with the Callus right here, this would be pretty good. He'll be able to at least take care of the Great Parliament and this Awakened Student.
Yeah, the Callus would be great here. It'd be enormous. But if he doesn't have it, it's kind of just doing nothing. This Awakened Student's growing. With Thundershot has all of his mana. The Surso is going to be a problem. So we'll see how things develop. Like something like Madness Combust really helps swing, like turn everything around if Waladil falls behind. We'll see if that ends up coming into play.
Yeah, Madness Combust is a very destructive combo, and I think you kind of hit it on the head when you said that I'm not sure why Stand Together is in here. Stand Together is very good at protecting against those Madness Combust combos, but at the end of the day, I mean, you have Protects in the sideboard. Like, they'll do the same job, if not even better.
It's just so much mana the Thundershot has to, like, just throw into the garbage turn after turn, leaving it to Stand Together. And he's, like, kind of committed to it because, like, you have to leverage this Stand Together. Like, if it's just going to sit there dead in your hand, you're probably going to lose. So you're like kind of priced to leverage, which means you're kind of priced into doing nothing for these past 4 turns. It's just super awkward.
Yeah, Waladil going to need to have some piece of interaction here. And
lol.
Yeah, 0-5 Oblivion Spike. I honestly, I guess he just played it here to soak damage. And meanwhile, Thundershot's kind of dirtling along because he's scared to throw out an extra unit into the Madness Combust. He will feel comfortable doing it now with Valkyrie Enforcer, being able to take care of the silence and still hold Stand Together. So
it was interesting, like the past few turns where like Waladil was trading like 3 1/1s, letting the Awakens to crack back. I would attack with like the 2 Grunted and leave the Dark Wisp back, because playing that Oblivion Spike is a pretty big sign of weakness, which means you need to draw things. If you want to draw things, you should try and trade this Wisp, but it was too late and now it's silenced. So And the Tornado Spiders Waladil's telegraphing a lot of weakness.
Yeah, interesting there out of Thundershot not to block any of the units. I guess he's respecting the rally, maybe, but that did seem a little curious to me that he ended up holding back with the Valkyrie Enforcer from taking care of one of the 1/1s.
Yeah, and this Awakened student's just been going to town, and Thundershot's actually been able to just hold up Stand Together forever. Like, he did have to void a bunch of his mana, but Waladil was never able to punish him for doing nothing. So he's able to just go all the way up the curve with the Stand Together up.
Yeah, this Stand Together would have really hurt Thundershot just holding it around if Waladil's hand had been much more explosive than we ended up seeing it be. If that Callus had come down on turn 3, this would have been just absolutely destructive. But
or ever, really.
Yeah, or ever. That is a very good point. I mean, Waladil's still just kind of floating around in the water, waiting to see if anything exciting happens, and he's going to Smuggler stash back an Oblivion Spike, and that's it. That's all.
Yeah. This is. I think Waladil should have tried to trade off these tokens, knowing he has a spike, knowing he has a Tornado Spiders. There's actually value to these creatures dying, even outside of the Dark Wisp. So I think that he could have played this game in such a way where he could have gotten actual value from those cards that he kind of ended up dumpstering.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, just not going to matter here. Wait, that was a misplay, right?
Well, he's playing around Torch because if he attacks and then stands together, and then they have Torch for the Valkyrie, then that's bad. But
Sure. But I honestly think it's really not that bad. Like, if they torture Valkyrie, yeah, it feels a little bad, and you end up instead of getting in 7 damage, you only get in 5, so they're still a little bit higher. But at the same time, like, everything has Aegis at that point. I think it was fine. It doesn't matter though. I mean, Thundershot's in such a commanding position. It's really, really not going to matter too much.
We'll likely see the 9/9 turn into a pig.
Yeah, gonna have to turn his own 9/9 into a pig, and that is definitely a cute interaction, forcing your opponent to block your own units and turn them into pigs. But not going to be enough. Waladil's hand just too awkward out of the gate there. So Thundershot bringing it back to 1 game apiece, and we're about to head into game 3, I imagine.
Yeah, I think Waladil just misassessed his role in that matchup. He was attacking with the 1/1s, or I think he should have been trading them, especially given the texture of his hand with the Torrent of Spiders and the Oblivion Spike. You actually want creatures in the graveyard. Also, you want to have the game go on for as long as possible if you have a Smuggler stash in your hand and stuff. So I think he just was too aggressive and wasn't able to really ever draw anything that punished Thundershot for just leaving up 3 mana forever.
Yeah, definitely did not find a way to punish him that game. And I mean, that's definitely the role of the Callus deck, is like you are looking to do really unfair things really early, like turn 4 10/10 weapons, things like that, just absolutely ruin your opponent, but you never got a chance to there. And I mean, we didn't even see Thundershot holding any of like the cards that I would consider to be the breakers in this matchup. No Decay, and Decay would just absolutely hose the deck. No Rain of Frogs either.
Yeah, that game was pretty much Thundershot did something and Waladil did nothing.
Yeah, and it just really did not look great for him. We see it.
Yeah, I think this game is gonna play out pretty similarly to the last game, or at least Thundershot wants it to.
Yeah, I think it very well may. It's going to come down to whether or not Waladil can have a good start here and how aggressive Thundershot wants to get. He'll probably end up just doing the same game plan where he holds the Stand Together until turn 6, and he can get the Valkyrie Enforcer down and make sure he's got Stand Together. But Waladil could possibly find some ways around that. He really wants to have Assembly Line right here on turn 3. That's very important for the Callus deck.
Look, any normal amount of proactivity punishes this, because if he's just able to go Assembly Line into Callus, or like Assembly Line into tokens into Callus the following turn, like he actually does get to punish Thundershot for just doing nothing forever.
Yeah, and it definitely looks like we're going to be in one of those positions, because Thundershot really doesn't have anything to lead off with. Like, he's either going to hold this Stand Together up and pass, or he's overextending into Madness Combust. And from his point of view, I guess he's looking at Stand Together as the better line, definitely after last game. But like you said, I mean, now that Waladil's got 3 1-1s down, especially if he has something like a Grenadin drone, he could just absolutely blow him out. And now that Thundershot's willing to commit another unit to the board, it's very easy to just have Madness Combust ruin you.
And I think this is fine, though, from Thundershot. You can't play petrified of that. Like, if you just never play a second creature, you're probably not winning the game. If you're just leaving up 3 mana forever, you're probably not winning the game. You just have to expose yourself to stuff like that sometimes. Say, if you have it, you have it. I can't really beat it. And he didn't have it there, and now Thundershot has a 4/4. He knows the coast is clear. He can start playing out things with a little bit more confidence. So I definitely like being a little more aggressive there.
Yeah, I think it's definitely going to pay off pretty well for him. And yeah, you do eventually just have to check that. I don't think you're doing yourself any favors by spending turn 3-4 or 3-4-5 not doing anything. So the fact that he's actually getting some stuff down is important. Let's see if the Madness Combust comes out, though.
But this is actually fine. Like, you kind of don't care. And actually, I would have blocked the 2-1 on the 1/1 if I was Thundershot, because then they can't combust your bird and you get your bird back. But he has Devour, so I'm not mattering. But the 2/1, like, what else is it doing? And I think it's, like, cool to cut that off.
Yeah, it's only a minimal source of damage, so definitely could see an argument there where you should just go ahead and stack it to the units. I guess from Thundershot's perspective, if Waladil's playing correctly, he wouldn't have attacked with all the 1/1s if he was planning on using Combust for that exact reason. But I'm not sure like how deep in the game logic these players are assuming each other are playing at.
Yeah, it looks like this is what Thundershot wanted to save the Acolytes for, but I guess not. Like, because if you're saving your Acolyte, it should be for block Stand Together there. Like, if it's not doing that, I don't know what it's doing.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what it's doing either, although we will see since the Dark Wisp is coming down, Thundershot's going to have a chance to use this Desert Marshal. Although I would have probably liked to see the Desert Marshal there in response to the Quarry. That way, when you do use your Desert Marshal at end of turn or something like this with the Callus, that you actually had the ability to silence off the Dark Wisp beforehand.
Yeah, because you can't respond to any of the sack outlets, be it Devour, Callus, whatever. So it's kind of just free to use it then.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see Thundershot go ahead and drop this Stand Together right now so that he can get aggressive and take care of this Callus. Though this does put him in a very good position if Waladil doesn't have a follow-up.
Yep. It turned out these Amber Acolytes were good enough. He was patient. I definitely think the patience worked out. I would have probably been aggressive in that spot, possibly too aggressive, but he ended up just getting to a spot where these Amber Acolytes are still in play, still good, still threatening this weapon.
Yeah, Waladil really needed an additional unit there. That would have helped a lot. Would have kept the Oblivion Spike alive for one more turn, allowed him to take care of another one of these units. As is, with the Valkyrie Enforcer coming down on top of the Gargoyle, that's going to leave him in a very, very awkward situation now where Thundershot has a lot of damage on this board, and Waladil very clearly does not have anything going on.
Yeah, and this is like what I said before. If the Callus deck doesn't draw a stash to recur the Callus, it kind of just does nothing. It just goes into turn 7, drawing 1/1s like this Dark Wisp that are irrelevant. So the Callus deck is very streamlined and very powerful when the synergies come together, but when they don't, it kind of just does nothing.
Yeah, it is very much a combo deck, and much like other more traditional combos, when you're lacking pieces of your combo, it really does bring you down too far. And Stash is one of those pieces of the combo, even though it's not directly interacting with the I put a bunch of units on the board and make a big Callus. It is still just as important, since you often win the game by recurring those Calluses over and over.
Yeah, and it's because you want to play 4 Smuggler Stash for that reason, but it's like awful to play 4 Smuggler Stash because it's frequently very bad until like turn 7. It's hard to get value out of it earlier in the game, even on turn 5. So the deck is in a weird spot where it needs to run a bunch of Smuggler Stash and doesn't want to run a bunch of Smuggler Stashes. So it's just, that's why I think that we've seen a lot of expansion and evolution of the Callus archetype, because the streamlined version has some problems that people are totally trying to address.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Waladil here, I can't honestly think of a 2-card combo that gets him out. Stash into Callus was almost enough, but that still leaves him at 8. Actually, Stash Callus would have kept him alive for one more turn, but that was the only 2-card combo that keeps him alive there. So unfortunately for Waladil, going down there, Thundershot picking up a nice little victory for himself, 2-1 over the Callus deck.
Yeah, good game by both players. We definitely saw the potential of what Callus can do in the first game, where he made a Callus, got to recur it twice. That's the plan. It's a very powerful plan when it works. But then we saw in games 2 and 3 when you're not able to execute that plan, you just have a deck full of 1/1s and a bunch of stuff that doesn't really do anything, and that's not great.
Yeah, was super cool there. We should have a backup match for you guys in just a second. We're going to get to see Callum Deer versus Ozymandias, but I'm not sure. The players are just talking to each other right now, so we're trying to figure out if they are done. I believe that Ozzy is leading 1-0, so I think we should see at least one more game, if not 2, if we're really lucky, which I would be super excited with. I am quite fascinated by this Huru control deck, I must admit.
Yeah, the horror control deck looks really sweet. There's a lot of ways to build it. Oh, but it looks like we're actually not going to get to see it. It's the Ozymandias 1-2-0. But that likely means we will see Ozymandias later in the day, either in top 8 or in future rounds, because he's now 4-0 with the horror control deck. So you'll get to see it later, Bairdrus.
Yeah, I will indeed. Is he yeah, he is 4-0 now. Wow, he was 3-0 going into this matchup. Wow, very, very awesome showing out of him. 4-0 basically has a lock on top 8, even if he goes 4-2, his tiebreakers are likely good enough to get him in, but one more win is a guaranteed lock on it. So super excited that Huru control deck will likely make it into the top 8. I think it's really cool when we have people come out and bring decks that, I'm not going to call them like suboptimal exactly. It's just like fringe decks, like decks that are considered by most people to be weaker against the field, that somebody decides to bring a version of and just absolutely blows it out of the water and just proves everybody dead wrong and shows them that no, this deck really can come to the table and play some games.
Yeah, especially people get a sense of, like, this is the best deck. Like, Stone Scar won a bunch. It's like, must be the best deck. The format's solved. But in reality, like, Eternal is so young in its development of, like, evolution of the meta. And there's such a small number of people working to break it that it hasn't been done yet. Like, there's still a lot of room in the format for people to do cool stuff. There's still a lot of things left to explore, a lot of things left untuned. So you can do stuff like Horror Control and the Fire Time Shadow control deck and play all these cool decks that people haven't really explored yet. And there's usually something there. Like, it's not like these decks are bad or worse than other decks, it's just that people haven't played them before because there's so much space to explore.
Yeah, and I mean that's such a great point for you to touch on, Truedawn, is I think a lot of people are really like been out of shape with the idea that, like, oh, the format's solved, like the format's completely solved, like we know what the best decks are, but I don't really think that we do. I mean, I think we have a general idea of what some of the best archetypes are, but there's so many decks and so many ways you can take it, and we've seen it time and time again where, I mean, Huru Control is a real deck. Xenon Control is a real deck. Xenon Killers was a real deck. And notably, all 3 of these decks are off-faction pairings. We don't have any cards that actually work together with them. Like, there's nothing... There's no hybrid cards that make them come together that are just like so amazing like some of the other decks do. Like, there's no Champion of Chaos in them. There's no I mean, Voprex is like a joke, but there's no Seraph. I mean, that's a much better one. There's no Great Parliament. So we see these decks that don't even really have support currently still coming out and putting up, really great showings in these best of 3 games.
Yeah, there's just still a lot of room for people to explore. There's a lot of decks that people haven't played with or certainly not tuned yet. And it's cool to see them do it here at the Eternal Tournament Series. It's a lot of A lot of interesting stuff happening, a lot of evolution over a short period of time. People are starting to figure out that people are playing too much mid-range, and now they're punishing that in various ways, be it aggression or going bigger. So it's really cool to see.
And I really do love that. Like, I love that, I mean, people are really down on the ladder sometimes, especially because, I mean, the ladder is not always the most fun thing to play, because with the best of ones, you are going to lean towards more aggressive strategies, and the games are going to be quicker, and you can often feel as though the format is, as we've said, solved, because the ladder format seems to be somewhat solved. But that doesn't apply at all when it comes to best of threes. Best of threes are so much different than that. And that's when we really get to see the creativity out of these players shine, and we get to see the tech choices.
Yep. And it does look like we actually have another backup match that we will get into. We have HiThar versus Flash in a pretty stalled out game here. A lot of 6/6s. A lot of large creatures. Both players still have a pretty sizable hand. We just saw a Sword of the Sky King kill an especially large Sandstorm Titan. So, and we do see pretty profitable attacks coming here from the Jack and the Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if, double block there. Interesting. I guess they are silenced. I'm kind of curious as to why we're not seeing the Desert Marshal come down. I feel like Desert Marshal would be great here to just silence away the quick draw and then force the trade. But we will see what he elects to do here.
Yeah, sounds like the quick draw certainly makes the blocking here a lot easier. Maybe he's more concerned about future Mystic Ascendant, Seraphs. The game is probably going to be about those, not so much this Jack. So I can definitely see being more conservative with the Desert Marshal.
Yeah, certainly. Torch could have hurt a lot there, but unit would have still gone down either way. I guess Torch was really going to hurt him either way. This is a very interesting game, and might it be noted that this is game 3, in fact, so we are seeing the conclusion of this. Both players tied at 1 apiece, obviously, and HiThar dropping his own Mystic Ascendant now and starting to power it up. That one not currently silenced, and now that we saw the Desert Marshal come out of Flash, curious to see if there will be another Desert Marshal to follow. Gonna need one, or he might be getting outvalued quite quickly.
Yeah, it's super awkward for HiThar that he only had enough mana to play the Mystic Ascendant and leave up 2 and not 3 for the stand together. You will still get to Marshal here, but the Marshal doesn't really do a lot. I think I assume the best blocks HiThar has is like Silence, Titan, whatever, like double block the other Titan with Dawnwalker and Desert Marshal, and then just eat a Titan, or double block the Mystic Center rather. Sorry.
Yeah. I think if you're gonna drop the Marshal here, you are gonna go with the double block with the. I'm very confused as to what these blocks are. I'm wondering what HiThar is playing around exactly.
I mean, not blocking with the Mystic Ascendant makes sense because stand together, but you can still double block the 6/6 with the Dawnwalker and 2/1, and it would still die even if it got stood together. So,
yeah, instead you're just taking very awkward chump blocks here. This seems wrong. I mean, you could have put the Desert Marshal and the Dawnwalker on a Titan if you were worried about stand together, and yeah, I don't know about that play. HiThar very likely to Parliament and Obelisk here. I think that's going to have to be his line of play, which is a very solid line of play. Don't get me wrong. This does put him in a pretty great position since this Obelisk is going to, make the board stall much more favorable for himself now that all of his units are going to be massive.
Yep. If there's anything I learned like brewing decks this week, it's that Xenon Obelisk just makes everything okay. You just have a bunch of unplayable nonsense in play, and play Xenon Obelisk can be fine. But Furnace Maze just some things to say about this. You take out the Xenon Obelisk. Things are now less okay, although still kind of okay. Stand Together, which Flash almost certainly has the way he's been playing, does blow out most blocks that HiThar can take here, but I don't know if he can afford to play around it anymore.
Yeah, I think you need to put. I think you can afford to play around it to a very, very minor extent. Like, I think you can put the 5/2 into one of the 4/4s, and I think you can double block the Mystic Ascendant.
Yeah, those are probably the best blocks, right? You put the Mystic Sen in a 4/4, the 5/2 in a 4/4, and then double block one of the 6/6s. Yeah.
Yeah, well, no, he should take that Mystic Ascendant into another 4/4. I think this is a huge misplay if he's assuming that Stand Together is coming down, because this Mystic Ascendant's going to die. I think you just have to accept that you're going to eat that 5 damage. Like, you know you're going to eat a certain amount of damage. What's the difference between 1 and 2 points? It's not lethal either way. If you assume Stand Together comes down, you'll be at 1 regardless. But these, I think this is a misplay out of HiThar on the blocks, because as we've said, we're pretty sure Stand Together is floating in Flash's hand. Although, if he has it, not getting played, excuse me.
Yeah, he might hold it there because those attacks are still like fine. Although he would have killed the Mystic Ascendant, so maybe it's like a torch or something. He certainly has some fast spell. He has paused several times since we joined him, and it is a torch. So that's a little bit better. This Parliament's a pretty good draw. So now it's going to stabilize, kind of, if he plays the Seraph.
Actually, no, I think you have to hold Stand Together here. I think you need to hold Stand Together and hope that you can your trades are good enough, because you can accept that you take 2 damage. And yeah, I don't like that Seraph HiThar. I think you got to go Stand Together, because if you make the Owls all 5/5s, you can profitably block 2 of them, chump block 1 into the Mystic Ascendant, and then on your next turn you're still left with 2 5/5 Owls, and then you can play the Seraph. As it stands this way, you're going to have to trade off basically everything on your board, and you're only going to be left with a single Owl. But looks like it's more or less not going to matter. My line of play ends up losing him the game here, so better on him that he plays it this way.
Yeah, it's a tough spot either way. I would have left up Stand Together as well for the same reasons you said, but we wouldn't have beaten the Desert Marshal. I'm not sure this beats the Desert Marshal either, because the 2 birds have to trade. Something has to chump the 6/6. Seraph can eat, or the bird can eat like a 2/1. So you're going to be left with a 2/1 and a 6/6 versus a 4/4.
Yeah, and you're down to 2, so you have to hit another unit here to even be alive, and that's assuming Flash has absolutely no follow-up, which so far it looks like you're in the clear. I mean, don't find the way. So you're holding 2 power. Marshall Ironthorn, there you go. That's your way out. He might just claw his way back in.
And Ironthorn's great because he can Stand Together, and it makes Ironthorn actually trade with the 6/6, so he's not just chump blocking this turn. So he actually starts to make forward progress on this board.
Oh.
Although the Torch is gonna make a sack of it.
Yeah, Torch is one of those very notable inclusions in the Fiery Combry decks. Being able to have just that little bit of extra reach is sometimes so important, as we do see in that game 3 there. HiThar otherwise would have been able to stabilize that board and, possibly actually taken over and won that game. But because of the reach out of the Fiery Combry deck, due to the Fire Splash, he was able to close that out with his opponent on 2.
Yeah, usually those decks don't have reach. Having reach does matter in a lot of situations. They generally want Torch as just like a 1-mana removal spell. It really helps shore up the early game so they don't get run over. But it's still, like, the versatility of Torch is extremely powerful. You do run into situations like that where it actually gets to close out the game for you.
Yeah, worked out very, very well for him. And 2 great matches right there. And I think that is going to be all for round 4. Yeah, this is all for round 4. I don't think we have any more outstanding matches, though I could be wrong. If we do, we have a very, very limited number. So we should be back in just a few moments, folks, with coverage of round 5 for the Eternal Tournament Series. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back.